right, happy Monday. Welcome in, Justin Kinner and yes, Kev Nash back with you here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, up and rolling here on a Monday, Super Bowl reaction Monday. Up and rolling, Mr. Kev Nash, welcome.
What up, though?
I feel like we haven't done radio together.
We went back to back yesterday.
We did. We had our, shout out to our partnership with Frickers. We started the morning. It was our final Sunday morning tailgate show of the season. Of course, we do throughout the NFL season from week 1 through Super Bowl Sunday. We do our show out there from 11 to 1 every Sunday. And yesterday was the last show, obviously, Super Bowl Sunday. But we'll pick up with that again later on. But then in the afternoon, we were over at Hollywood Gaming. And we did our show over there to walk it right up to about 6 o'clock. And then Super Bowl kicked off a little bit later. And that's where we're going to pick up there. It was all about what to expect with the Super Bowl. What's going to happen in the Super Bowl? What's going to be the legacy fallout afterwards? I'm going to say, obviously, there's only one or two things that can happen. Chiefs win, Eagles win. That's it. But I don't think what we thought was going to happen in regards to, the Eagles could win this. I don't think anyone thought that they could blow them out, unless you did.
No. I predicted a close game. I predicted 24-17, that the Eagles will win a close one. I did not expect a beat down to epic proportions. I mean, it was 17-0 at the half. Well, no, 24-0 at the half when they got that, the second interception. They hit that big pass to Smith down the middle of the field, and that was all she wrote. Because, they already had a pick six going on in that game, and they couldn't block them. They were rushing forward, getting pressure left and right. It was just a masterclass of, hey, man, this is how you develop a team. This is how a team is built. Because we could obviously look at the MVP of the game and Jalen Hurts, him completing 17 passes for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also additionally rushing for 75 yards. But shoot, we could go talk about all the guys on defense. And the only guy on that defense that's really, truly, quote unquote, breaking the bank is Josh Sweat, the defensive end. So those guys are super young, and this is how you build a roster, man. You get a whole bunch of talented dudes. You got to hit on these draft picks, which is super hard to do, but it seems like Philadelphia's figured a way out to do that. Draft dudes out of Georgia.
11 guys on both sides of the ball. 13 of them are homegrown players, as far as drafted, developed, paid for, and all of that. I mean, we're going to talk more about the Eagles blueprint coming up in a moment. Let me ask you this. So we talked about this on Off the Bench earlier, but didn't really think about it going in. I don't think really we gave too much thought of the impact of the Eagles winning in convincing fashion, which the clues were that we should have not seen this coming, but shouldn't be that much of a surprise considering how dominant they've been all year. They've been dominant all year, but there still felt like there was just something missing, right? Like, aren't they an odd team? They dominated, but still something seemed odd with them, and I really can't put my finger on it.
That was early in the season. I think they started 2-2
yep,
to kick the season off or whatever. The reason I thought it was going to be a close game because of the Kansas City Chiefs defense. It's as simple as this. People are looking at the blowout and super blown away from it. I am too. But like you just talked about, the crumbs were there. The crumbs were there all season long. Like, we rewind all the way back to week 1 of the regular season where Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens are playing football, and that epic game where there's a toe out of bounds and the play gets negated and everything like that from the Ravens. The biggest takeaway from that game wasn't Lamar, wasn't Mahomes, wasn't Kelsey, wasn't King Henry. It was the fact that their offensive tackle was false starting and their offensive tackle was offsides majority of the game because he can't block. Juwan Jones can't block. And we saw this happen before to the Chiefs versus the Bucs. The offensive line is the problem. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is so great that he's able to make things happen regardless. This offense hasn't been good all season. And once it turned into a situation that they were going to have to score a lot of points, it got real fast.
No, it did. And, all year, when I want to talk about a team that just something seemed off all year, I guess the team that went 15-2, I guess when you watch them. Now, I always try to just shake that out of my memory because I'm like, I think we're falling for, we're so used to seeing look, I would say this about the Bengals. This is the best roster that Joe Burrow is going to play on. I said that a couple years ago, or the year they went to the Super Bowl. I'm like, hey, this is the best roster Joe Burrow is going to play on. And then the next year they lost guys, and the next year they lost guys, and they've progressively taken a step back. And it's not that it's not that teams take a step back. It's just that because of the salary cap, the roster is constantly evolving and moving pieces and everything. And the same goes for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. As more guys got paid, that roster was always going to get a little worse, a little worse, a little worse. And that's what we're seeing now. So we were so used to seeing the Chiefs have all these weapons galore for many, many years that the last 2 years, even though they won the Super Bowl last year, they get to the Super Bowl this year. These have probably been the two least talented teams that Patrick Mahomes has played on. And he's still 1-1 in the Super Bowl with these teams. But these are not the two best teams that he's played on since being in Kansas City. And I think we saw a lot more deficiencies last night, probably more than what we've seen from Kansas City in years past. You could say, well, that year they got blown out by the Bucs. That O-line was just absolutely devastated to injuries. It wasn't the best O-line that year to begin with, but it was devastated by injuries. We knew that the Bucs were going to feast in that situation. Last night, that O-line was healthy. It just wasn't that good. And the D-line for the Eagles, by the way, to talk about how deep the Eagles D-line was, Hassan Reddick and the Eagles had a staring contest, and the Eagles were like, we don't really need, we want you out there. We want depth. We need more. You can never have enough pass rushers. We don't need you. So go ahead, throw your temper tantrum. They didn't move him until the absolute latest spot that they possibly could. That's how deep that Eagles roster was, and they feasted on the Chiefs' biggest deficiency, one that I don't think we talked enough about or did not think it would have as big of an impact, and it did because they ate all night. Yeah, they didn't send the dogs.
That's crazy.
0% blitz rate on the night.
Rushing forward the entire night, getting that much pressure on Mahomes and shutting the run game down. It got to a point, obviously, where they weren't able to run the ball. They had to throw the ball over the lot, and they just couldn't protect them. And I mean, these, like I said before, there's crumbs to this, and some of those crumbs go back to last season where, you look at that game that they lost to the Raiders. Now, nobody's going to say like the Raiders are good at football, especially last year, but they have Max Crosby, and Max Crosby was a game wrecker in that game. You look back early in last year's Super Bowl, Bosa was getting after him and stuff like that. But like they were able to run the ball a little bit to keep the 49ers off balance. In this game, they were unable to do that. And then Philly was able to strike fast and then the pick six. So like, all right, well, shoot, we can't even, it's 17-0. Like we can't just sit back here and rely on Pacheco and Kareem Hunt to do the load. We got to get 15-yard chunks. That means passing the ball. And they were unable to do that. And once it was 24-0, cancel Christmas.
Yeah, you had that big play that I think it was Hopkins. Yeah, Hopkins was wide open and just dropped it. Just dropped it.
Never saw that. I've never seen D-Hop drop a pass ever. Dating back to his days at Clemson, to his time with the Texans, to the Cardinals, to the Titans, to now. I've never seen him drop a pass ever.
His first Super Bowl appearance. And that was big. And I felt like we talked about it earlier on off the bench. It was like the game kind of felt lost then because it felt like, all right, the Chiefs are about to make a big play and then everything's going to open up. That was the big play. That was supposed to be the big turnaround play. He dropped that. The camera panned over. Chris Jones is just like his flabbergasted as to how the hell that can happen. He just looked, I felt like the energy from the Chiefs just got sucked out from there. I will say, though, they seemed flat from the very beginning anyways. Like
really?
Travis Kelce didn't have a lot of personality. Patrick Mahomes just was like staring into space. It felt like, but again, this is their third straight Super Bowl appearance, fifth, Super Bowl overall. Like, I wonder if the lights just aren't as bright for this situation for them because, poor them, they're so used to this. But it's like, for a team like the Eagles have a chance, they're playing for something to get back at the Chiefs. I know you could say, well, they're playing for the three-peat. It just almost felt like sometimes you're too comfortable being in the championship game. And so, like a lot of teams, like when the Bengals got there a few years ago, man, this is everything. You're going to come out just absolutely guns a-blazing. Same thing when the Rams got there. It was, Matthew Stafford's first Super Bowl appearance. Like everyone's coming in with the same just urgency and the same intensity. I felt like the Eagles came out with all that intensity because they had something to prove. Yes, so did the Chiefs technically, but it just felt like for them, they're so used to everything going their way that once it started snowballing and getting away from them, I think they dug themselves too big of a hole and they couldn't get out. They couldn't balance the offensive attack with the run because they dug themselves too big of a hole. And at that point, they were having to rely on the arm of Patrick Mahomes. And one thing we did learn about him, he's not a good quarterback when there's pressure on him. He's just not. Like Joe Burrow, to his credit, one thing I'll say is like when the pocket collapses, no quarterback is perfect in those situations, but he seems to handle. He sacked 70 times in the season and led a team to a Super Bowl. He can handle the pressure coming down on him. I'm beginning to think when that pocket collapses for Patrick Mahomes, he's not as poised and under control as we thought. I think we saw a little glimpse of some deficiencies with him, and it's just funny. It's taken 7 years to find him. So.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as if you're able to get pressure with 4 and dropping 7 in the coverage, it just makes things that much harder for any quarterback out there. When you're blitzing, it's easier. You can diagnose where the blitz is coming from. You can throw it to the hot receiver because, all right, you're smart enough. You're processing the information like, oh, the linebacker's coming from this spot. I have Kelsey sitting that zone. Boop, first down. Oh, we got a slot corner blitz. Oh, we're going to drop it off to the flat. Like all those type of things. But when you're able just to get that type of pressure they were getting and dropping, 7 guys in the coverage, flooding those lanes, making those throwing lanes impossible to see. And also he's on the move. He's running. Like it looked very, very Tom Brady-esque versus the Giants. That's the Giants game plan that they did. Like, hey, man, we're just going to rush Strahan and Tuck and those big boys after you. And we're going to drop in the coverage. We're going to keep one over the top because you got Randy Moss, and we're not going to let one get over the top because you got him, and we go man up on everybody else, and we're going to drop our linebackers, and you just going to have to make a play. And, Tom Brady's credit, he did drive his team down the field to take a lead in the fourth quarter. But to Mahomes, he was trying to throw it into coverage, and it got picked off several times last night. This was definitely his worst game of his career.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, all reaction, of course, today on this Reactionary Monday, coming out of Super Bowl 59 again. The final was what again? It was 40 to 22. Yeah. Eagles over the Chiefs. Eagles dominating fashion. So a point that I made earlier today that so they won a Super Bowl in 2017. They get back in 2022, and then they win it in 2024. Is this team? When teams win it like this, do they have the makeup to be a dynasty moving forward? And that was the generic question we threw out earlier. And I'm like, not only do they have to make up to be a dynasty moving forward, I think we're already watching one. I mean, if you think about it, since 2017, it's 2025. So in an 8-year span, in 8 years, they've been to the Super Bowl 3 times. In 8 years, they have 2 Super Bowl wins. In the last 8 years, they have 4 division titles. And they've done it with multiple head coaches, and they've done it with multiple quarterbacks.
Right.
Technically 3 different quarterbacks if you want to be technical there. But I mean, we could sit there and say, does this team have the makeup to be a dynasty moving forward? Where are you with my takeaway of, I think they kind of are a mini dynasty as is right now. I mean, 2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years is impressive, but when you realize they just won one recently with a whole different cast of characters, that's how well run this front office is. They are a well-oiled machine at this point, to the point to where losing a head coach didn't rattle this franchise, to the point to where you've made multiple QB changes since then, and it didn't rattle this franchise. They're a well-oiled machine. I think the Eagles actually are a current sitting dynasty as we sit here right now.
I don't think they're a dynasty because I view a dynasty as you have to still have that same core in place that had won one. If I'm not mistaken, the only player still on that roster that was on the team when they won the Super Bowl is Brandon Graham, the defensive end out of Michigan. I think he's the only guy that's still on that team. Granted, there was a lot of guys that were on the team that played the Chiefs before and lost. I think if you get, 2 more in the next 3 years, certified dynasty. I'm not ready to call this team a dynasty. I think there's like too much of a gap between when they won it and when they won it this time.
So I think what they've done, actually, everything you said is why I think it's even more impressive, is because it's not the same core. A lot of times you talk about organizations who get a core and they milk it for all it's worth, and who knows when we're going to get that again.
Right.
They just keep getting it over and over. Look, I'll say it's like an organizational dynasty, just because the success that they have had is ultimately like the 49ers are close.
Right.
The 49ers and Eagles remind me a lot of one another. They're basically the same type of build. They operate the same exact way, except the Eagles have, found ways to get back and win it. Maybe the Niners get back next year out of the NFC. I mean, the NFC is starting to shake up drastically. I remember heading into last year, I thought, man, the NFC is so bad, the AFC is so great. And we got to the end of the season, I'm like, the AFC stinks. The AFC is not very good. I mean, if the Chiefs is the number 1 team in the AFC, look, you know what I mean? Like, that team looked very vulnerable last night. That's the most vulnerable Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes team I could think of throughout this entire run.
Yeah, it was bad last night. I think it's jaded a lot of people about the Kansas City Chiefs. And, I was talking to our buddy Ryan Drake about this and said, if this was college football, we would be saying they didn't deserve to be there.
I saw that. I saw people posting that, like, based on how Indiana gets blown out. See, told you they didn't deserve to be there. But nonetheless, let's talk more about Patrick Mahomes when we come back. By the way, I think the phone lines are fixed. We'll figure that out. 937-518-1410. thoughts on last night's Super Bowl. We're going to talk about the halftime performance. Everyone loved it. 10 out of 10, according to everybody on the old socials. You know,
Stick
everyone.
to sports, Ken.
Oh my goodness. The halftime performance. We'll talk about the commercials, all the typical generic stuff coming out of a Super Bowl. But that's what makes the Super Bowl the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes, did his legacy take a hit last night? We'll discuss that. Plus, what did that Super Bowl win and MVP do to the career of course, Jalen Hurts? We'll get to all of that when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show. Kev Nash hanging out. I guess we'll just call it the Kinner and Kev Show today. Super Bowl reaction here on a Monday. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, Tom Brady lost twice in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady was 3-2 in the Super Bowl. Same record that Patrick Mahomes has now, which Tom Brady.
3 times.
What?
Twice to the Giants, once to Philly.
What?
Tom Brady.
No, I'm sorry. At one point, he was 3-2. Yes.
Gotcha.
But at one point, yes, he was 3-2 in the Super Bowl, the same as Patrick Mahomes at this point. Obviously, the difference is Patrick Mahomes still in his 20s. Well, but I think the argument people are making today is it's not the record itself; it's the performance. Tom Brady still performed at a high level in those 5-2 games or whatever, or those 3-2, during the 5-game stretch. So the fact that this is the second poor performance by Patrick Mahomes impact his legacy at all. I don't really like the legacy stuff is weird to me at this point, but we're here and people are bringing it up. How much did his poor performance hurt him last night in regards to how he's viewed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're coming with pitchforks, the older garb and, the Patriots fans are saying, I told you he wasn't him. I told you he wasn't good, yada, yada, yada. And, the way he played definitely last night, they got a ton of ammunition, not necessarily for the Bucs game, because the Bucs game, I just think I thought they were going to lose that game. I knew about all the injuries on the offensive line, and I knew their offensive line wasn't good in this game. Going into this game, but I didn't think he would play this poorly. And out there forcing throws, the multiple turnovers, the sacks aren't always on the offensive line. A lot of that comes from trying to extend plays and stuff like that, or not just throwing the ball away when the play is over. So yeah, it definitely dings him. But like you said, he's still in his 20s. He's got a long runway to try to eventually catch Brady if that's ultimately the goal.
So I feel like people, and you're right, people were coming at him with pitchforks. The pitchforks were going to come no matter what. Even if he would have won a clean Super Bowl with no controversial call, it would have been, well, the league got what they wanted. They got their, they accomplished their goal of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl and blah, blah. No matter what, everything he does is discredited somehow by the people that dislike him. That's just how this is going to go. Do I think that people look at him different today? I think so, because he looks vulnerable. So I think about Patrick Mahomes that has always been annoying is that the guy just looks, he has no weaknesses. He has no deficiencies. He has superhuman powers and all this. I think for the first time ever, what we saw last night, even though we saw glimpses of it in the loss to the Buccaneers years ago, but I think Tom Brady was the story there more than he was the story last night for all the wrong reasons, his poor play. I think it's different. I think it's because we've seen the vulnerability in him now. I don't think people fear him now. I think we've seen him play so poorly last night that has impacted how people view him. It's no longer a guarantee that he's going to come in and be great. Was there a blueprint that was put out last night? How do you beat Patrick Mahomes? Is it just not, just send 4 and drop? I mean, what is the blueprint? I mean,
there isn't a blueprint, man. I think that Philly just has the guys. I always say the talent is more important than the coach. They just got that much talent. Not everybody has the ability to simply rush 4 guys and get pressure and to drop that many guys in the coverage. Okay, huge TJ Watt fan, huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. They were unable to do that versus Kansas City.
Yep.
So TJ Watt's a great defensive end. He wasn't able to do that. Shoot. There's tons of teams out there that have great talent, but do you have that much talent? Do you have multiple edge rushers, multiple big guys on the inside, but not just the starters, but the backups too? Do you have that much on your team? I doubt it. I don't think there's a lot of teams out there that have that stacked of a roster to be able to, they go and basically line changes, hockey style. All right, you guys are in the first 2 plays. Now you guys are in the next 2 plays. They just keep them fresh and just keep them going, because that's why nobody's stats on that team jump out, because they just keep rotating them.
Share the love,
And that we bang on their head coach for barking to the media and barking at his players and stuff like that. That's something that's built inside the locker room, and a standard from the head coach to say, man, look, man, if we all buy into this philosophy that everybody eats, that everybody's going to get their turn. Not a lot of guys are willing to do that, because a lot of guys want their stats that turn into stats and sacks and turns into dollars. You know what I'm saying? They want to have the Myles Garrett type of season. They want to have, the TJ Watt seasons. They want to have the Michael Parsons seasons. You know what? Why they get those stats? Because those dudes rarely come off the field. That's not what happens with Philly. They rotate a lot of guys.
Yeah, the Bengals defense wasn't very good, but their best chance was Hendrickson being out there. The Browns defense has been very solid in recent years, but obviously Miles might be a little different type of example. Him and TJ Watt are two freak of nature athletes more than anything else. But like the there's a lot of examples of that too. Everyone's like, man, imagine Myles Garrett on that D line. I don't think his numbers would be as good in Philly as in Cleveland. Doesn't mean he's not as good in Philly as in Cleveland. It's just he would be used completely different. Same thing with Trey Hendrickson or whatever.
I mean, imagine him in the fourth quarter, super fresh.
Yeah.
And instead of running on 70, maybe he's running at 85. So like that's what makes those guys so much better because they're not tired.
So I think we upset Jason Pruitt. He's a Chiefs fan.
Hey, Jason, how you doing today? Probably not well.
He goes, you guys are effing delusional. Chiefs didn't belong, ? They have one bad game all year, and you sit there and trash Mahomes.
Who said they didn't belong?
We were talking about the jokes on social media when people said if this was college football, based on getting so in college football, Indiana, others who get blown out, were like, see, they put this team in the playoff. This team doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. We were kind of alluding to that. Like if this was college football, they don't belong. It was kind of more of a joke at college football. A lot of sensitivity in the city last couple of days. I'll get to that later. But
man, people are mad, man. The Kansas City Chiefs nation is upset. There's obviously tons of Chiefs fans all across the country, but what's our guy that works for FS1?
Nick Wright.
Nick Wright.
He went silent on socials.
I taped their show, so I can't wait to get home and watch what he has to say about his team because I mean he was peacocking, but I'll give him a lot of credit. The last time I saw an interview with him, he was on Bomani Jones' show going into the Super Bowl. He's like, yeah, they can definitely lose. Like the Eagles have the personnel to beat them, but do I think they're gonna lose? No, I got my Chiefs or whatever. But it turned bad. It turned very bad. So I got to check that out tonight.
Snowballed quickly. And when Jason Pruitt said that, keep in mind too, not really trashing Mahomes, but he was bad. I don't care what the final stat line was. A lot of that, I mean, it was that big 50-yard bomb, beautiful throw. We're not saying he's a bad quarterback. He played, considering who he is to this point and the way he has played on the biggest stages of them all every single time. Yes, he played very bad last night. He's still a great quarterback, still probably the best quarterback in the NFL. No one's taking that away from him. He was bad, Jason. I don't know why you're getting that defensive. I mean, I know why you're getting defensive. It's the same way we all get defensive of our teams, but that's a little rich. I think that there are probably way more aggressive shows than this one as far as going at the Chiefs today. I've been tame on the Chiefs because I think it's a big deal. It's a big deal, but it's not. Patrick Mahomes played poorly, but I don't think he didn't get exposed of anything as far as being a bad quarterback. He had a bad game. He has no weapons, but like your number one wide receiver has been out since the very beginning of the season. I don't know. And then the tight end, Travis Kelce, he was nowhere to be found for 3 quarters. Just wasn't open. Couldn't get to him. So I don't know. I don't feel bad for the Chiefs. I do wonder how aggressive they're going to be this offseason. Because I do think they've been very stagnant offseason wise when it comes to that offense, because we don't really need to spend heavy at pass catchers. I mean, we've gone through this dynasty without the elite wide receivers. We move on from Tyreek Hill. But I think now that Travis Kelce is regressing, now that they don't have like elite wide receivers, where are you at on Rashee Rice, by the way?
I think he should be in jail.
What am I missing with that? Can't keep up with all these guys.
Remember what happened to him in the offseason, the hit and run situation?
Oh, yeah. I think he should be in jail. But Karma got him because he got hurt at the beginning of the year, not praising an injury.
His talent is there. The question remains, will he, get off for these crimes that he's committed? Almost committing vehicular homicide. So I think he should be in jail for that. But no, I think he's a good football player. I think offensively, I think they have the weapons. I think, with Worthy, Hollywood Brown, you get Rashee Rice back. The priority in this draft is offensive line and specifically offensive tackles. Like, hey, man, your first 3 picks, tackle. Like one of those dudes got to work out for you. One of them, because you got to protect your quarterback. You got to be able to do that. And I will say this, like people are banging on Patrick Mahomes for the bad game that he had. I think everybody on the Chiefs, outside of their run defense, everybody played bad. Like
read coach bad.
It was a clean sweep. It was a clean sweep. Like you talked about, receivers weren't getting open. Kelce wasn't getting open. Offensive line wasn't blocking. There were no holes for the running back. Hey, man, he's going to get the blame because he's the quarterback. But, hey, man, it was a Chiefs loss, not just a Patrick Mahomes loss, because this is a team sport. Everybody loss. Everybody had their hand in that loss last night. Everybody had their hand in basically people saying, all right, after this halftime performance, I'm probably going to turn this off. And I was close to doing it.
Get to halftime in a moment. I also feel like we're 33 minutes into this now. Jalen Hurts. Everyone's talking about the bad quarterback play, Patrick Mahomes. Second straight Super Bowl that Jalen Hurts has been in where he has outperformed and outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That's just the reality of it. And this time he comes out on top. Last time he outplayed Patrick Mahomes, but the Eagles lose by a possession. This time he again outplays Patrick Mahomes and it was quite a few possessions. So when it was all said and done, Jalen Hurts, a lot of people believed the popular assumption heading in that if they win, it's going to be a big 125, 2-touchdown performance from Saquon Barkley with maybe him throwing for 210, a touchdown and a pick, and just a solid, efficient night out there. Everyone's a reason why the Eagles won last night, but he did it all. He did it all. I mean, the Chiefs took away Saquon Barkley. Their string continues. I think it's 19 straight games where they have not given up a 100-yard rusher individually. I mean, total yards rushing is one thing, but one single person has been able to rush for more than 100 yards. I did find the irony that I thought Jalen Hurts was going to be the one to do it. A quarterback was going to be the one to do it. So
got close.
I thought he was outstanding. I spoke very highly of him after the last Super Bowl. I think I took a little off because last year I think he regressed. And then this year we talked about it. I don't think he's played poor this year. I just don't think they've needed him to be a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow or Josh Allen because, again, they rode the running back throughout the regular season and through most of the postseason. But they needed a quarterback performance yesterday, and he just reminded everybody, yeah, I still can do this. I do it when it's needed, and it was needed yesterday, and he perfected it yesterday. He was brilliant, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion now. It wasn't just a solid QB. What do they call him? Game manager performance. That was a true Super Bowl MVP performance. 300 total yards, 3 touchdowns. I thought he was fantastic. QB rating of at 114. How people are still finding ways to nitpick it today is just insane.
I'm glad I don't really watch the sports media like that, but I was talking to my buddy, and he was saying, hey, man, they need to go ahead and divide up the MVP to the defense of the Eagles. I was like, yes, the defense was great, but Kansas City's offense was not great. They were average to very good all season. Now that's how they were. So shutting down that offense, I was impressed by, but wasn't blown away by. I was blown away by how Jalen Hurts performed, namely because I know how good the Kansas City Chiefs defense is. So they were a run first team, and this is great coaching by Kellen Moore, and you know what? We're gonna pass our way to victory. And they hit big passes. They hit big passes to AJ Brown. One got called back, and that got called back. But shoot, he hit him on a crosser for a touchdown. He hit the big bomb to Smith, he was there. And not to mention the legs, not only scrambling for yards, but also zone reading and stuff like that. He was outstanding, man. He deserves it.
Yeah, and now the conversation where he stacks up against all the quarterbacks. That's perfect offseason talk. But for today, for last night, for today, he's a Super Bowl MVP. He's a Super Bowl, not just a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP. And for a while when that game started, because he threw the pick early, I'm like, he's not playing great. The run game for both teams could not get going. Saquon was struggling early, and Jalen Hurts didn't look great early. The defense looked, I was like, man, I don't know who the hell's going to win this MVP because no individual looks good. No individual looks great right now. As the game progressed, he looked great the rest of the way. So, I'm all for Jalen Hurts coming away with that. We did our sleeper MVP picks yesterday. I thought Kareem Hunt had a good chance of being there as a sleeper. Remember, Kareem Hunt. Yes, as a sleeper, because we took out, obviously, the quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, and we took out the second best playmaker, of course, Saquon Barkley for the Eagles and Travis Kelce for the Chiefs. So that left a lot of sleeper picks. You could say, A.J. Brown and others, but I'm like, if they're in position to get it, it's going to the quarterback.
Right.
So I picked Kareem Hunt, who was non-existent, but so was Pacheco, so was the run game, so was the offense for the majority of the night for the
11
Chiefs.
Carries for 49 yards.
Who was yours again?
My sleeper pick was somebody from the Philly defense. It was either going to be Jalen Carter, one of those guys up front that was going to make havoc. They made havoc, but shoot, if I was going to give it to a defensive player now, post watching the game, I would say Josh Sweat. Got 3 sacks last night. He was a werewolf coming off the edge.
Werewolf. Oh, we've heard that before. All right, Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, 1410 ESPN Radio. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page as well. You can jump over there and tune in and interact. I'm going to get to the chat in a moment. A lot of comments I want to get to. Hopefully they're nicer than Jason Pruitt, the Chiefs fan. He said we're effing delusional. To be fair, he didn't spell it. He just put F-ing. So, he's controlling his temper technically, but he's making his point. We'll step away for a few moments. Let's get into the halftime show. Let's get into the commercials. Let's get to all the entertainment outside of it. What'd you guys think of Donald Trump being there? No, I'm joking. Jesus. 40-22, the Philadelphia Eagles come away victorious over the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. They not just won the Super Bowl last night, but prevented the three-peat. One of the most dominating postseason runs. The Eagles trailed for a total of 5 minutes and 48 seconds throughout the entire playoff run. Not bad.
Oh, okay. I do
briefly
remember
against the Commanders.
Yeah, that's the one I remember because Scary Terry took that bubble screen to the house. Yeah,
that was one of those weird games where you look at it, it's like, man, they dominated. They did towards the end, but that was actually a good game for the majority of it, the Eagles and Commanders. Either way, I know Jaden Daniels did better against that defense than old Patrick Mahomes. You could at least say that. But either way, we welcome you back. Look, the Super Bowl is a spectacle in itself, and we've talked a lot about the fallout of legacies and the result itself and what it means moving forward. But the Super Bowl is a spectacle, everything that comes with it. Obviously, the commercials, the halftime show, everything else. I will say this. I did feel like the build to this, and we talked about it, I think, through one of the shows we did over the weekend. I thought the build to this Super Bowl was just kind of Like, I felt like the buzz for this Super Bowl was pretty low, and I don't know why, because the Eagles are star-studded all over the place. You have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, the Taylor Swift thing, Andy Reid's in every commercial you can imagine. Like, maybe it's that. Maybe there's a little fatigue with the Chiefs every single year. But we say that. We always do that. There's fatigue with the Miami Heat. There's fatigue with the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James. There's fatigue with the Golden State Warriors. And then we get a break where there's a different team in the finals every single season, and then ratings just plummet. There's a direct parallel between dynasties and ratings. There just is. And we're watching one right now with the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, they lose last night. I'm sure it'll be record viewership, but I just felt from my perspective that the buzz around the Super Bowl was just a little weak this year, weaker than most.
Yeah, it was down, and I credited it to everything that was going on in the NBA. You know, the trade deadline is always at the same time it is, but there's never a big move like this was with Luka and Anthony Davis getting traded like Saturday, last Saturday. So that just dominated sports talk all week long because people are like trying to still figure it out and still trying to process. And then, you know, with Jimmy Butler, I know Jimmy Butler isn't like as big a name as Luka or as good as Luka, but like it was still another big name. And then there was rumors about Kevin Durant being moved, like going back to Golden State. So like that took up a lot of talking points. So before you blinked, it was Friday, and it's like, oh yeah, the game. I had to go to the grocery store. I had to go do a lot of stuff to get ready for the game because I was so tapped in on everything that was going on in the association.
Yes, NBA headlines was actually, I couldn't believe how much we were talking about the NBA during that week. But it was because of those mega moves. And by the way, NBA talk, especially when it comes to player movement, and I saw 60 players were moved at the trade deadline. It was the most players moved in the NBA at that deadline ever. So there was a lot of movement. In years past, there's always been buzz about big names moving, but what's a big move that you can remember in recent years?
Man, on trade deadline.
I don't think you can top Luka, but like a Jimmy Butler type, I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen something like that really garnered attention. While you look that up, I think the other thing too, I also think last year's NFL offseason, there wasn't a lot of big things that happened last NFL offseason. You had Derrick Henry who left the Titans to go to the Ravens, but there wasn't massive names involved. This offseason alone, the Bengals across the NFL, not just with Bengals fans, but across the NFL, people are fascinated by what's going to happen in Cincinnati with how they, how can they afford to keep everyone in Cincinnati, and how will they afford to be able to patch the holes, in that roster through free agency. You have Joe Burrow doing all these media hits. You have Myles Garrett with the Browns, who's literally going on a tour, just doing everything he can to get out of Cleveland. I think, and you have Aaron Rodgers, who the Jets announced they're moving on from. I mean, Aaron Rodgers where's he going to end up? It has just been talking point after talking point. All the offseason news dominated the build-up to the Super Bowl, it seems. I was joking yesterday saying it was the pre-off season. So you had the NFL preseason off-season along with the NBA trade deadline. I felt like that just absolutely dominated the week build. Because Super Bowl Media Row is supposed to be to invite as many media outlets as possible to help talk all things Super Bowl, to build it up. And I think Radio Row was just all about Joe Burrow, all about the Bengals, all about Myles Garrett and the Browns situation. Shador Sanders, Dion was doing hits everywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just felt like it was a very busy. I felt like that was a very busy content week, more than usual.
Yeah, I'm looking up this NBA trade deadline stuff. So back in, I guess this is pretty big. I mean, back in 2023, KD was traded to the Suns. You got in the year 2022. Harden was traded to Philly. So like, yeah, these are still big names that are being moved right before the trade deadline. But like, I just think it was with the Luka situation, literally out of nowhere. There was buzz about these guys potentially moving. The Luka one was just like out of nowhere, and it's Luka, for goodness sakes, being moved.
An NFL equivalent, and people got mad. I don't know. Forget the names involved. I'm just trying to say, like, it would be like going to bed and waking up tomorrow and Lamar Jackson has been traded.
Yes.
Or Joe Burrow.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Any big-time quarterback.
Yeah, because it turned into people getting offended about the extra. So you're saying Joe Burrow is the equivalent to Anthony Davis, and people getting all offended and blah, blah, blah. By the way, Adam Schefter had you in the palm of his hand, and you guys all fell for it. So whatever, more power to you. But that was a dumb analogy. I get that on his end. But no, that would be like, there was no rumblings of the Luka thing.
Right.
It just happened out of nowhere. From Luka to the halftime show. Let's go to the halftime show. I'll just be, I didn't care for it. It wasn't for me. I like Kendrick Lamar. It was on in the background. I'm like, oh, by the way, the visualization of everything was freaking cool. They used that HD camera. I'm a wrestling fan, so I watched SmackDown when it was on Fox, and they had that HD camera that would follow the wrestlers when they walked to the ring, and then it kind of blurs out everything behind it. They used that a lot last night throughout that performance. I thought aesthetically it was great. I thought it was neat. I like the choreography, all that fun stuff. It just didn't do it for me. But see, that's how you can say things about not liking it without it having to turn into other stuff. But some people just aren't so disciplined.
Oh yeah, man. It went off the rails. I posted something on our other station, Hot 102.9, rate Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. And man, the array of people and their views and other views started coming out. And, like I like to say, people start telling themselves. For me, it was great. And I will admit, it's a little inside music. A little, you have to be on the inside to know what's going on and know what he's talking about and know, Kendrick Lamar, and not only him, but his music and his message behind his music. Obviously, the beef situation with him and Drake, you kind of have to be on the inside. So, like, I understand how that could turn a casual person off that just is there for a great time and great entertainment. Like, I totally get that because, I mean, shoot, you coming off of last year, you had Usher in Vegas after a residency. Like, you probably can't do better than that. So I totally get it. I mean, years before you had Bruno Mars, like these big time entertainers, and you have a rapper who's not going to sing and dance. He's going to rap. He's got to have dancers. But I mean, for what he was doing and the point he was trying to prove, I think it was a home run. And obviously the big talk was he really going to perform not like us? Because of the lawsuits that's going down between Drake and everything like that.
Sue.
Like that. Like, so for me, I was just curious. Like, I didn't think he was going to perform that song all the way up until last Sunday when he walked away with 5 Grammys for the song. I was like, oh, well, yeah, he's doing it now. I was steadfast. Like, there's no way he's going to perform that song. He can't. And then he won 5 Grammys. I was like, oh yeah, he has to perform it now. And then him teasing it or whatever. And then him actually performing it. Bringing, who came out? Samuel L. Jackson came out. Serena came out, and people, there's more inside behind the music thing. Like, he's beefing with Drake. So SZA, R&B artist, used to date Drake. So the Serena used to date Drake. So it's just like I said, it's a little inside numbers. It's a little too far behind the curtain, little too cool for school, little too much. Hey man, you got to know what's going on, as opposed to say, hey, I just want to see a great performance. So I get people saying that. The other part I don't get.
So Samuel L. Jackson, my favorite part was the fact, for one, that got everyone's attention. I do think that was the one thing that for those who were like, who the hell is this? If you don't know who Kendrick Lamar is,
right?
Everyone knew who Samuel L. Jackson was.
Right.
So I think that was the hook that kind of got the casual just at least lean in a little closer to whatever. But basically just trying to get him, now calm down. Now
Yeah.
So I got to, then every time he'd go up a notch,
yeah.
a notch.
Yeah.
It was the pettiest halftime Super Bowl halftime show ever. That's a lot of pettiness there. Even Serena was catching strays on First Take today.
Yeah.
But
wow.
Can you move on if you're still trying to get back at the X during the Super Bowl halftime show? By the way, it's an invite to the Super Bowl halftime show.
Why not? Why not? Do it big for Compton.
Commercials I thought were just whatever. What was the last Super Bowl commercial that really?
It's been a minute. This year, removing movie trailers, because that's always my go-to. And somebody was asking me about this before. I was like, Oh, I talked about, there's a new Marvel movie coming out. It's like, oh, that was a new trailer. It's like, you can't use movie trailers. You're going to go to the movies anyway. What product were they shoveling down your face that made you laugh, that caught your attention? So I would say probably the Nike ad with Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, and Sabrina Ionescu. Yeah. I think that was probably like the best one that I saw that made me stop in my tracks and watch. A lot of the Doritos one was funny. With the aliens when he gets abducted.
So I probably missed that one. I mean, there's some you're talking, you're getting up, getting food. You're missing probably some commercials throughout. I'm a Shane Gillis guy, so I love Shane Gillis. I find him to be absolutely hilarious. So Shane Gillis and Post Malone and Peyton Manning all
with the grill.
They're just using obviously their lawn care items to shoot beers at people. So whatever the block party or whatever. So, but that one wasn't like a surprise because they had released the behind the scenes stuff and the build up to it. So it is what it is. Look, I actually thought it was a horrible Super Bowl. I thought it was horrible from beginning to end. Like,
I think that's also it. I think the game is a domino effect about how people feel about the halftime performance and how they feel about the commercials, because the game was a dud. So like, you're not in a great mood. Well, you better entertain me. Who the heck is this Kendrick Lamar? What song does he sing? I don't know any songs. I'm out. These commercials stink. I think it was a domino effect. So you know who we blame? Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. Like always. Everyone loves. Yeah, and it reminded me of that. It was the Patriots and the Rams years ago, which I couldn't wait. That Super Bowl, I was like, this one's cool. This is like kind of full circle. Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl against the Rams. We thought that was going to be his last Super Bowl appearance. So it kind of was like a full circle thing. That was one of the worst.
Yes.
It was just horrible. It was one of the most boring Super Bowls. It was so low scoring. It was just pathetic offensively. We saw a lot of scoring last night, but it reminded me of that one.
13-3 that Super Bowl.
And I think that was the Adam Levine and Maroon 5 one too that everyone bitched about as far as that halftime show as well. Like, people didn't like that halftime show either. So very similar, where everyone complained about the halftime show, everyone complained about the game. I don't remember what commercials came out of that. But either way, to be honest though, social media. When was the last halftime show where everyone was like, this is fantastic? This is great
I think
stuff.
The last two before this one. I think the Dr. Dre, Snoop, Mary J, M.
That was 3 years ago.
And 50 people. I think everybody was cool. I'm not sure, but I really enjoyed Usher. I don't think anybody dislikes Usher.
Millennials loved the last three. Obviously had Rihanna in there. Rihanna, I didn't like it at the time, but looking back now, like, she had no one around her. She literally just pregnant too. She's pregnant. She just owned the stage by herself, did the whole thing, and then just rising up on that riser. So that one wasn't a top one, but it was good.
Yeah, it was good.
That was good. Usher, but for millennials, Usher, obviously Rihanna, and then of course with Snoop and Dre and everyone else, like, it had a millennial run for a bit.
Yeah.
Now millennials feel old after what we saw last night. So just saying. But who do you think is next year?
Man, so obviously Jay-Z and Rock Nation picked the artist that's going to perform at the Super Bowl.
Jay-Z. I'm like, do you think they're going to go Jay-Z?
I mean, he's the person that picks that who performs, him and Rock Nation. I mean,
so they're in charge.
They're in charge of the entertainment for Super Bowl. So I mean, they've been hitting them out the park. I mean, just to say, for instance, you didn't like this year. Let's just say this year was controversial. I don't know anybody that didn't like Usher. I don't know anybody that didn't like Dr. Dre, Snoop, and Mary J, 50 Cent, and Eminem. Like, and Kendrick was on that one as well. So, like, I think they're hitting about 75%. So, whatever Jay-Z and Rock Nation roll with, I think it's going to be a home run.
Who do you think? Oh man, I'll tell you. I think Post Malone could be a safe one because he covers multiple genres. I think he covers country and he hits multiple. I think he could do a crossover performance. I think Post Malone would be an interesting one.
I would roll, if I'm going to go that route, I would roll with somebody that's a tad bit hotter. I would roll with Jelly Roll.
See, Jelly Roll is going to be at the shoe for Buckeye Country Superfest. We'll have tickets for that. We'll be giving away right here. 1410 ESPN Radio. But Jelly Roll is with who? I think Morgan Wallen's pretty big too, but I don't, but that'd be an extreme opposite halftime performance. I don't know, but I thought Post Malone, Jelly Roll's a good one, and Jelly Roll's a crossover too.
Yes.
He can kind of blend
big crossover
multiple genres. So, I kind of like this, and I don't know if it ever gets to the point where I kind of like when you just combine different, like you get just different performances.
Yeah, I
well.
remember
That's why
one.
I love the with Dre and Snoop and Eminem and 50 and all that. Like, that's why I love that one. And so many people, like, they touched on so many different fan bases and then brought everyone in for one.
Yeah, I remember. It was Diana Ross did it solo, but I think it was some years ago. It was it Tina Turner and Aerosmith or something like that? It was like some type of combination of that and like Tony Braxton, like all in one night. So yeah, I'm good with that too. Like a combination of artists.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll be interested to see what they do with that one. Ann Anderson said, "Oh, where'd it go?" No, she said, "It's a football game. Give me the best damn band in the land any day." So that would be wild. So I am curious. Like, so if Cleveland does get this dome, it'll be the first win in franchise history. No, if they get this dome in a few years and they get the Super Bowl, first Super Bowl to be hosted in the state of Ohio, would you? I would have the best damn band. I would have the Ohio State's band be involved in some capacity.
I would love it. I thought that, like, maybe we're going to get Grambling or Southern's marching band to come out with Kendrick last night. Obviously, it being in New Orleans and everything like that, that didn't happen. But like, I thought that would have been a great opportunity for the city to kind of be on display as well. But yeah, I'm with that for sure. Like, somebody has to rope that in.
All right, Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, 1410 ESPN Radio, our number one in the books. Coming up after the show, we'll be sending it over to Mode X. Chris Collins, Jim Brown, Clint Sargent. It'll be the Wright State Basketball Coaches Show. And we're at Mode X every Monday, I think, for the next month and a half. So, like, to close out the regular season. So that's wrapping up too.
Crazy.
I think like less than 6 games left. Maybe 5. Hell, I don't remember.
But, I'm just looking at Super Bowl performance. Prince down in Miami. Prince
that one was
doing
cool
Purple Rain in the rain.
That one was raining in the rain. That one was good. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we joked. Everyone said Creed. Put Creed out there. He hasn't been out there. Well, Dallas Cowboys halftime show. People just, All right, Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll be right back.